The Florida Gators defense is going to need to replace a lot of production in 2025.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Friday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. And like I mentioned, the Florida Gators are going to have to replace a lot of production on the defensive side of the ball for 2025, which you can look at and say it's a good thing and a bad thing because, one, you got a lot of youth on the defense, right? Secondary is very young. Not that you're going to be replacing a ton of guys there. You've got quite a bit of youth at linebacker, which you don't really have to replace anybody there. The only person we're maybe waiting on is Shamar, his decision, what that may be. Again, I mean, I'm recording this pre-Christmas, so at this point in time, he has not made a decision. He has not made an announcement. And then there's the defensive line, right? In the edge room specifically, you look at, and the reason that this stems is because the other day I put out the PFF's highest graded defensive players for the Florida Gators in 2024 with a snap count minimum. So it's not like, oh, yeah, he played one snap and had a good play, and so he's the best player. But it is just from the defensive end edge room. Tyreak Sapp was your highest graded player on the entire team, offense and defense. And again, at the time of this recording, he has not announced yet if he's planning to return for 2025 or declare for the NFL draft, or I guess just not that I think this happens, but just for the sake of not being caught in a situation where I give two outcomes and a third one happens, portal. Then you go down to the eighth best player on the defense, and it's Jack Pyburn, now at LSU. Then the ninth best player on the defense, TJ Searcy, Texas A&M, which means that Jack Pyburn and TJ Searcy are both gone from the Jack room, that Jack linebacker position, and they both played a good deal of snaps, right? Tyreak Sapp, again, played a lot of snaps as that defensive end. He's maybe gone. We don't know yet. So I'm just including him in this as not penciled in for 2025, right? That's how we're going to not penciled in for 2025. Then we look at who can potentially replace them. I think everybody is going to jump first for LJ McCray, right? I think LJ McCray is the most likely player that could eat up the huge majority of available snaps, available reps at either edge spot, really. Like if you're talking about if Tyreak Sapp leaves, LJ McCray has already played that role. And if Tyreak Sapp comes back, I could see LJ McCray being the type of guy that easily comes in and plays the backup to Tyreak Sapp. As in LJ McCray can play the backup to Tyreak Sapp, or the backup to presumably George Gums, a Jack linebacker. Size, athletic profile. LJ McCray has that whole makeup to be able to play either end spot. That's not a concern for me. There are guys like Justice Boone should never stand up or should never play with his hand not in the dirt, which he's at Arkansas now. I believe he transferred to. He's another player that transferred but didn't play, so he's not a contributor they really lost. But LJ McCray could play both spots. I think that depending on what happens with the Florida Gators coaching staff, you could see the end spots become more interchangeable, right? If you go to someone who prefers to play with 4 down, or even still the 3 down, 1-man stand-up edge rusher, but they actually rush the passer more frequently than they do in this defense, then they become more interchangeable, right? Especially, let's just hypothetically, let's go to 2024. If you have that interchangeable spot and it's Tyreak Sapp and Justice Boone were your edge guys, neither of them should be dropping back in coverage. So you kind of knew, hey, they'd be rushing the passer. But if you can line up with Tyreak Sapp and LJ McCray and Cameron James, both of them can rush the passer. Both of them can drop into coverage there, at least threaten it a little bit. Not again, I want Tyreak Sapp not dropping into coverage, but just hypothetically, that could happen. Cam James, like I just mentioned, another name that rotated in quite a bit this year. There were, I don't want to say stretches because I don't think it was ever consistent, but there were a couple of games where you watch Cam James play and you're like, all right, well, he's looking genuinely just really good right now. Like he showed flashes of not just, oh, he made a pop play. Like Cam James had games where he looked like one of the better players on the team. And this was his first year of significant contribution. In 2023, he barely played. But you look at his 2024 film, and against Florida State, he beat the crap out of them. He did. Against Miami, he was maybe your best defender. Against Tennessee, he was one of your better defenders. And those are probably the main games that pop out. I think Ole Miss, he played well too, but I think the whole defense really played well against Ole Miss. So there's that. But when you look at this edge room, you're replacing, if Tyreak Sapp does not come back, you're replacing a lot of guys that played the significant bulk of snaps. Like if Tyreak Sapp doesn't come back, you've got George Gums back. You lost TJ Searcy, you lost Jack Pyburn again, and then Tyreak Sapp is, if he's back or not, then Cam James, then LJ McCray. And those are your main snap getters at the position. And you've lost 3 of your main snap getters on the edge if Tyreak Sapp is not back, which again, at the time of recording this, we don't know. If he comes back, we can tell lies. All right. He played really well this year, but he's a damn good player. If he comes back, we're in a great spot. If he's not, we're going to have to figure out what's going to happen at the edge room because there needs to be an improvement there. If Tyreak Sapp is back, that's great because then you've got Gums and Sapp back. You've got LJ McCray being able to back up either one of them. Cam James being able to back up either one of them. And then we're like, all right, well, that's a great 2 deep. And if injuries happen, we can talk about those when we get there. But that would be a great 2 deep if Tyreak Sapp does come back. We're going to stick on the defense. Again, we're talking about replacing production from the defense in 2025. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about that you were paying for twice? Definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, helps you monitor your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings and hit your goals quicker. There's a subscription tracker. You can use it to cancel services that you weren't using anymore, cancel services that you're paying for twice. It's beautiful. It eliminates a lot of the stress, which I don't know if you know this, but if odds are if you're listening to this, you're American. In America, a huge majority of people, their biggest stressor is finances. You can help get rid of that. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And the next position, the group that we're talking about, it's the cornerback room. Because when you look at the cornerback room and you look at the returning production there, you've got Dijon Johnson is back as your starter, who by the way, came out the other day that he played with a torn labrum and that he balled the hell out, right? And I'm a little upset that he didn't get an interception toward the end of the year specifically, because let me tell you, if Dijon Johnson got a pick against Florida State, I was going to yell mustard so loud. I want you to know that. But obviously that didn't happen. But Dijon Johnson, he's going to be getting, I believe, an offseason procedure to fix that torn labrum. He'll be back next year. Great. Jason Marshall Jr., declared for the NFL draft. Triquez Bridges, declared for the NFL draft. And I say declared for the NFL draft because it seems like everybody, whether they have eligibility or not, is declaring for the NFL draft because everyone gets eligibility now, right? Like Diego Pavia gets eligibility. Everybody gets extra eligibility. So I think guys are now, even if they're out of eligibility, essentially saying, hey, I'm declaring for the NFL draft as a way of saying I'm not asking for extra eligibility. So Jason Marshall Jr. declared for the NFL draft. Triquez Bridges declared for the NFL draft. Devin Moore has spent time significantly banged up this year. Jakeem Jackson, and Devin Moore has been banged up throughout his career. Jakeem Jackson is at LSU. So as far as returning corner production, at cornerback, you've got 498 snaps from Dijon Johnson. Then you have to go all the way down to Cormani McClain, who has 98. And we're talking about at corner, not in the slot, not lined up as a safety. So Dijon Johnson, Cormani McClain, Teddy Foster, Jameer Grimsley, Sharif Denson, Javion Toombs in the bowl game. There is not a lot of returning production at cornerback, right? At all. Triquez Bridges ended up being an incredible pickup that started games at safety, then at corner, and ended up performing pretty well at both. He had that one, I think it was Texas. I think it was the Texas game where Triquez Bridges was like his first time starting at corner, and that was bad. That was ugly. He was clearly uncomfortable. Once he got comfortable at corner again, he looked pretty good to end the year. Jason Marshall Jr. was having an awesome year before he got injured. Devin Moore, pretty good corner, right? I mean, we were talking about Devin Moore as when he's healthy, he's the best corner on the team, but he is so injury prone. There's been a mixture of minor injuries and major injuries. So it's like, it's not even as if you could say, he gets hurt, he misses a game, and then he comes back and he's fine. And then he gets hurt and misses a game and comes back and he's fine. It's, he gets hurt, might miss a game, might not come back this year. And that's been a thing that we've dealt with a lot with Devin Moore. So my next question is it a little out of pocket of me to say that the expectation should be, hey, Cormani McClain develop into a starter quality corner opposite Dijon Johnson? And I will say this. When Cormani McClain committed to Florida this summer, I told everyone that I was very open about it. His film at Colorado was not good. Okay? I told everybody that when he was at Colorado. And even in high school, I was like, that kid is raw. Like, he needs a lot of work. But he has those physical traits that you can't teach. And if you do happen to get him to click, he's going to be a first-round pick. It's as simple as that. Like, he could be like Sauce Gardner type. And I don't just mean, he's tall and skinny. I mean, legitimately, skill set-wise, he could be Sauce Gardner type. So when Cormani committed to Florida, I did not think his film at Colorado was very good. Still had his miscues with Florida in 2024. But his miscues, granted in a smaller sample size, his miscues were more rare. Like, they didn't happen on just a percentage-wise. They didn't happen as often as they did at Colorado. But also, I think one of the things we saw that kind of changed with Cormani in Gainesville compared to Colorado was that we saw that ball hawk tendencies that we saw from Cormani, which, again, I mean, he played 3 games defensively this year, was not a contributor. He redshirted, so not a thing that you really need to say, like, I got hurt. So it's not like there's a large sample size to say, this or that, but he made some big plays where he didn't make those in Colorado. He made fewer mistakes that he made in Colorado with a little more time in the strength and conditioning program. And with Will Harris, who, again, when Will Harris got hired, I was skeptical of him, not because I didn't think he was good, but just because I knew that he was at Washington when they were churning out first-round DBs, sure, but he was at Washington when Jimmy Lake was the defensive coordinator. And Jimmy Lake, historically, one of the better defensive coordinators, one of the better defensive back gurus in football history. So I was skeptical about, well, how much of it was Jimmy Lake and how much of it was Will Harris. Will Harris seemingly learned a lot. And don't forget, that was the thing. When Will Harris got hired, I said, I'm skeptical, but I'm cautiously optimistic because the way that I look at it is Will Harris was doing the developing at Washington to get those first-round picks, or Will Harris was watching Jimmy Lake do that development at Washington and get first-round picks. So he at least saw someone do it and should know how to do it. And, I mean, hey, you give Cormani a little more time with Will Harris, Jameer Grimsley, Teddy Foster, these tall, long, fast athletes, and you give them a little bit more time with Will Harris, and you could be talking about, DBU coming back to the University of Florida. We are going to go back down to the defensive line to wrap up today's show next on Locked On Gators. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action as well with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel, where you can go and get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Like you could bet it on something easy, right? Bet it on something that's, I don't know, minus 400 or something, like minus 500, get $1 back if you put the 5. Like you can figure some things out, make yourself some money. All I'm saying. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, the Florida Gators need to replace talent on their interior defensive line, right? I bring up the highest ranked players, the highest ranked defensive players, highest graded defensive players on PFF for the Florida Gators. And second highest graded player, defensive tackle, Cam Jackson. Third highest graded player, defensive tackle, Caleb Banks. Sixth highest graded player, defensive tackle, Desmond Watson. Caleb Banks is back. Awesome. If he could play all of 2025, how he finished 2024, he can get into a first round conversation. Okay. I want to make that clear. I know that people were talking about it, but my thing when we talked about it initially was he has not done that on a consistent basis. They're not going to draft him as a first round pick off 3 or 4 games of wrecking stuff, right? It's not how it works. So Caleb Banks is back, and if he plays all next year how he played last year, he's going to dominate. Or how he played at the end of last year, he's going to dominate. Jamari Lyons will be coming back. He broke his ankle right before the season. Or at least what Florida said, what Billy Napier said in the press conference was that he broke his ankle. And so, because I remember when it happened, it was like, yeah, well, he's probably out for the year, but not going to rule it out completely yet. So there was that. Caleb Banks, Jamari Lyons, good defensive tackles, right? Cam Jackson, gone. Desmond Watson, gone. I don't know what the plan is, and this is something we've talked about with the portal. I don't know what the plan is for Florida at defensive tackle, right? You could start both Caleb Banks and you could talk about Jamari Lyons and say, hey, they're both going to start there, right? Like they're both going to be our starters. Maybe we won't have a true nose tackle or a true 3-tech. We're just going to let them both go out there, both line up on the interior, and both wreck stuff, right? Maybe we'll just double A gap them and just put them out there and let them wreck. That shouldn't be the plan. Like, not to double A gap them. But maybe the plan is we're going to rely on the development of Mekhi Boyero and DeAndre Robinson. And that's going to be the path that we take with our defensive line. Maybe. Either way, this is one of the reasons that I really wanted Florida to heavily pursue a nose tackle in the transfer portal. I get that you're not going to get into a bidding war for a nose tackle. Okay? I wanted Keyshawn Silver. However, I also recognize if you're getting into, really steep prices, maybe not for a nose tackle, right? I get that. But one of the reasons that I wanted Florida to pursue a nose tackle so that you don't have that situation, that issue. Caleb Banks and Damari Lyons, I think both are more of 3-tech fits. I think DeAndre Robinson is more of a 3-tech fit. So then you're pretty much looking at Mekhi Boyero as your true nose tackle. And look, I think Mekhi Boyero played well. I do. I thought he played well. I thought he played confident. Like, you could see him talking trash and stuff. Like, I thought Mekhi Boyero played well. But, and if you don't know this about me by now, welcome. I would prefer to play it safe with some things. And I have a general rule of thumb. Because, again, we're talking about a very young Florida Gators team, right? We're talking about young at QB with Lagway. Young at running back with Jaden Ball, Katie Daniels. Young at receiver with Dallas Wilson coming in and people wanting him to contribute right away. Tank Hawkins in year 2, TJ Abrams all there. You're young at some of the offensive line spots depth-wise, so if any injuries happen, you're going to be a little screwed there probably. Young on the defensive line. Young at linebacker. Young at corner. Young at safety, depending on how much Hilton Stubbs and Lagonza Hayward play. Linebacker safety, not too concerned about, because even if they're young, they're experienced. But I think that that's a lot of youth that you're banking on developing into significant quality contributors in 2025, and that is always a concern for me. I think that I just have a general rule. If you're relying on a lot of development, just know that a lot of people are not going to reach those expectations, right? A lot of players are not going to reach those heights, those expectations that you're asking for. A lot of people are not going to leave that. There's going to be some that really blow it up and just get way better. But the general rule is that not all those players are going to reach their expectations. And so that can get screwed. And so when you're looking at nose tackle and it's like Mekhi Boyero is your only true one there. But I also don't want to bank on the one guy developing. So that's why I wanted to go to the portal. I would just rather bank on someone a little proven. But hey, here we are. And again, I like Mekhi Boyero. It's just trying to hedge my bets here. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever listen to the podcast and on YouTube. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and we'll see you all next time.